This episode of A Conversation with John Conenna is sponsored by Generate. In today's digital age, staying ahead means harnessing the power of generative AI. Wondering how your small or medium-sized business can join this revolution? Look no further than Generate, your strategic partner for integrating cutting-edge generative AI solutions. We create personalized plans, adapting existing AI technologies to fit your specific business needs. Plus, our expert team provides essential training, empowering you to make the most of these innovative technologies. Interested in transforming your business with AI? Reach out to us at generateteam@gmail.com. That's generate, GENERAIT, team@gmail.com. And now, on with the episode.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Tonight, it brings me great pleasure to go back to something that I love. It's hockey. And tonight, we're going to talk to a gentleman who was inducted in 2023 into the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame. He has been a linesman for many years, from the old WHA days, IHL days, and of course, at one time, one of the original first board of directors for IHOA. We speak of Gary Como tonight. And of course, like I said, to open this up, Gary was inducted in 2023 into the Hall of Fame here in Illinois. And we're going to get to that part. But Gary, I appreciate you coming on here tonight. And as always, I always tell them, whatever the age, whatever the time, what is going on with you, young man?
Well, I'm enjoying retirement, number one. Been retired now for 12 years from the U.S. Postal Service. I retired as the postmaster of Melrose Park.
Wow.
And one of the many things that took place in my life that I could never have imagined. And I try to golf as much as possible and do a lot of work around the house. I'm currently in the middle of a project. I'm redoing the family room. Taking care of a couple of grand dogs that I have.
Okay.
My son's not allowed, he's leasing a house in Park Ridge, and he's not allowed to have large dogs there. So I took up the
responsibility.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's a great father to do that, especially, right? Exactly.
And I'm still involved in hockey. I'm currently an off-ice official with the American Hockey League, working the Wolves games.
Oh, wow.
When I do work the Wolves games, I'm generally working either one of the penalty boxes, either the home box or the visitors box.
Exactly. Well, we're going to get into that too. That's fantastic. I didn't know that you were still involved with it.
Oh, yeah.
I ask you, in talking to you off the camera, of course, before we started this, and of course, knowing that you were inducted into the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame, you grew up basically in that West Humboldt Park area, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
From fourth grade on, Mom and Dad, we lived with my grandparents for a while, and then when I started fourth grade, we moved into the West Humboldt Park area. I lived on Avers between Augusta and Thomas.
Right.
And went to Our Lady of Angels. And unfortunately, the first year I was in the school was the year of the tragic school fire.
That fire, yes. And Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, that fire was in 58, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
December 1st of 1958.
Well, what a time in school. It was this time of year, school had just started, correct?
Yeah, well, the fire was December 1st, but yeah, we started in September, I'm sure, the school year.
Yeah.
That was we all grew up fast that day.
Sure. Yes, I remember you saying that to me also. I got to tell you, because for that time and that era, when I was reading through some of the bio here, when we go back to talk about you growing up there and, of course, growing up and watching hockey, I remember in the 60s when a guy named Dan Kelly used to do the game of the week on CBS, and I saw that you had seen these games in the late 50s when CBS would do the game.
Yes.
Was that really that first thing, that first passion for you with the hockey?
Yes, you're exactly right. Not many people know that CBS. I want to say they broadcast the game on Saturday afternoon, and it was either from Madison Square Garden or Boston Garden.
Right.
And I saw it, didn't know anything about it, and I, just kind of wondered about it. And I loved watching it. I loved watching all sports, but
Sure.
it caught my eye. And then a family friend was a big Blackhawk fan, season ticket holder, and he kept telling my dad, "Oh, you got to take your kid to a game. You got to take your kid to a game."
Right.
And in 1959, early in '59, after the fire, after the school fire, Dad took me to a game, and I think it was kind of like, for lack of a better term, a reward or something. Not
Sure.
for obviously, but just just something special for him to take me. And I remember the first game, it was Chicago and Detroit. And we went up to the second balcony, standing room only. And I saw that ice with the colors. And then when the teams came out, the Detroit with the white and the red, and the Blackhawks in the red, predominantly red, I just, my jaw was on the floor.
Right. Right.
And that was the start of the passion, and it hasn't stopped since.
And Gary, I got to tell you, you gave me my favorite line in these podcasts is the goosebumps. I can imagine going in the old building, but what's so weird about this is this 10-year parameter between me and you. My first game was in '69, and it was against the Blues. And I'll never forget, you probably in '59 saw Glenn Hall and Terry Sawchuk go at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember Eric Nestorenko was shadowing Gordie Howe, and Howe got sick of it, and he turned around and whacked Nestorenko on the
elbows.
back.
Nestorenko with the elbows, yeah.
Yeah, he whacked him on the back of the legs. He got a 2-minute penalty for slashing. And, they shared a penalty box back then. There was only one penalty box.
Right.
And for some reason, I remember, I could tell you it happened right at center ice. It was just something that sticks in your mind and never goes away. And you're talking about Dan Kelly. I met Dan Kelly.
Oh, wow.
in Pittsburgh, and in the '80s, and he was a great guy. And next time he came to Chicago, he was asking about me, and he was asking Chef Hans.
Oh, yes.
Chef Hans, he says, "Hey, my nickname in hockey was Snake."
Okay.
We won't go into the story. And Dan, and according to Chef Hans, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year.
Yes.
He said, "Yeah, Dan Kelly, he asked about, he says, where's that Snake? He says he kept me up way too late in Pittsburgh and blah, blah, blah." So I had the pleasure to meet Dan Kelly.
Wow. And, just to feed off that, what an announcer. I still say to this day, Gary, and I want to get back to Gary Como, of course, but to this day, I don't care what anybody tells me, Dan Kelly and Lloyd Pettit, the best hockey announcers on the planet.
We're the Mount Rushmores of hockey announcers.
Exactly. Oh my God, they were fantastic. You felt if they were on the, I remember Kelly with Gus Skyle on the radio, you felt like you were in the St. Louis Blues arena, without a doubt. Yes.
And the famous call of Bobby Orr's goal overtime, and then the famous call of Mario Lemieux's goal in the Canada Cup.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, I love the way you put it, Mount Rushmore. So you get involved with this. I mean, you got a passion for it, because I saw where you basically you go to these games, you see this, now you want to be part of this. You see the colors, the ice, and everything. You want to put the skates on. You started off at the old Michael Kirby, I notice.
Mom got a hold of me, and she didn't want me hanging around G&L Bowling, Chicago Avenue, and suggested that I do something else. And she came up with ice skating lessons, and I promptly said, "Well, I'll kill myself." You know,
Right, right.
no idea where it would take me.
Wow.
And yes, I started at Michael Kirbys, the original Michael Kirbys on Lake Street in River Forest.
River Forest.
That
Wow.
was 1960.
Wow. How far was that? Because I know this is in Forest Park, but how far was that from the original Gonzos?
The original Gonzo's was on Harlem and just south of Roosevelt Road.
Yes, yes, yes.
In Berwyn.
In Berwyn. That was the original one. Okay, okay.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the one in Forest Park, but the original one was Berwyn.
Yes.
Wow, wow.
And he opened that in 1963.
Jeez.
He stopped being the equipment manager for the Blackhawks and opened up the store.
Yeah, and we're talking to our audience tonight that we're visiting here tonight with Gary Como. We're talking about Wally Huminiak, correct?
Yes.
Which was, of course, the nickname was the Gonzo.
Everybody in the world knew him as Gonzo, and he was the kindest man you'd ever want to meet.
Ure.
He treated everybody the same, whether you were a millionaire or you were down on your luck.
Yeah, he did that consistency of how he was. No, for sure. So you get involved, you start playing, and was it more at this Michael Kirby? And I know you go to this Elmhurst YMCA. Was it more of like picket games, or what were these the leagues of that era in the 60s?
No, actually, I put skating on hold for a couple of years. There weren't many places around, the West Humboldt Park area to be skating at, unless you wanted to take a risk and skate on the Humboldt Park Lagoon.
Oh God. Yeah.
But then when I graduated in '63 from grammar school, Mom and Dad had a house built in Skokie. And there was a park in Skokie called Terminal Park, and they put up boards in the winter, and that's when I really started trying to hone whatever skills I attained.
Right.
Playing pickup games, rat hockey. I mean, there was just mobs of guys out there, and
sure.
And you learn how to handle a puck and stay away from people that way.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
And then in '67, I was working at Automatic Electric in Northlake as a draftsman. I was in the engineering department.
Was that off of North Avenue?
Yes, it was on Wolf Road, right in back of Villa Scalabrini on Wolf Road.
Yes.
North Avenue and Grand.
Right.
And I met a guy, Ken Pierce, who had a pretty good career in his own right. He was working at the Elmhurst Y for Jim Campbell.
Okay.
And this was the fall of '67, and Ken got me started officiating. And I'd started doing house league games for the Elmhurst Huskies.
That's what they were called back then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Bobby Hall Jr., Blake, his brother, who was a year younger than him, they were in the program. A lot of people went through the Elmhurst Husky program. Tony Granato.
Right.
Phil Esposito's, not Phil Esposito, Tony Esposito's son.
Yeah, Jason and Mark, I think. Yes.
Yeah, they played there.
Yeah. Wow, incredible. What makes you getting into the linesman, the official part of this game?
It was loved the game. I was still, I started playing men's leagues at about the same time.
Okay.
Played at the Elmhurst Y. We had a Sunday morning thing, and Rainbow Arena, Polar Dome. Those were really the main places to play back then. And as far as getting into the official part of it, loved the game and make a few extra dollars here and there.
Sure. And
never thought that it would amount to anything, and never had I didn't start out saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this and be professional," or work professional games. I thought that never crossed my mind.
Right. Did you think, okay, now here we all want to be that player that growing up, playing like you did in Skokie, playing through high school but to become the referee, I really do believe the mindset has to be really different. Me being the coach here in Illinois, Gary, was always my point. Like, I'd come out of the locker room and I'd say, "Oh, who are the refs tonight?" And your thought process would always be, "Oh God, tonight we got Como or we got Reslowski."
Yeah.
Your thought process. How do you go into a game knowing let's say a coach was boisterous or a coach was mellow? Did you know what you were going into the day or the night before that game, knowing, okay, we got this guy who could be the nicest guy in the world, or we got this guy who could be a really total what?
In some cases, that was the case. Later on, when I was referee and chief of the Chicago Metro High School Hockey League, they played at Randhurst Arena, and the teams that played out of Randhurst, the games were a little on the rough side, a lot of physicality, and you would go into a game knowing that. But having said that, there's my philosophy I learned pretty early on was to just don't go looking for trouble, but react to when trouble happens.
Okay.
And later on, I don't know if you know this, I was an on-ice supervisor in the IHL in the late 1990s, right before the IHL folded.
This was where the Wolves originally played in.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I started the off-ice official crew for the Wolves in '94. I was the supervisor, and then I worked doing that for 5 years, and then the IHL asked me to supervise the on-ice officials, be one of the supervisors. Myself and Derek Martin, Derek, I'm sure. Yes. And I would have, and I was also doing it for the United Hockey League as well.
Yeah, the United States League, yes.
No, the United Hockey League.
Oh, the United Hockey League. Sorry, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I would see officials give a penalty and get mad, at the player, and their posturing was just, it was undesirable. And I after the game, I'd say, "Well, you remember that penalty you gave that guy in the second period?" "Oh yeah." I said, "Why'd you get mad at him?" "Well, I don't know." I says, "Wait, you're like a policeman out there. You react to what you see. Don't get mad. You got him. You wrote him the ticket. You sent him to the box. You're done. What are you getting mad at?" And that was pretty much my demeanor. I just didn't see anything, if you're going to get to me like that, you're going to get to me more often than needs to be, that is necessary,
A key word you brought up was like when you say, you could see from where you were sitting, the posture. Yeah, you're right. You're just the judge and the jury here. Hey, go to the box. That's it. But you were able to see that. So if you saw me after the game and I argued a call with you, if you saw me in the parking lot after the game and then you said, "Hey, John, you want to go for the beer?" You're going for the beer. Your mindset's not on the argument we had on the ice.
Absolutely.
Right.
That I think that's one of the great things that we all experienced being in the game. Leave it in the rink, be done with it, and know that you are, let people know that you are approachable. If you want to talk about something, we'll talk about it. This is what this is what I saw. And at the same time, be honest if you blew it. Hey, I saw it this way. I'm sorry if it didn't happen that way. And that makes me a better official to discuss these things.
Right. I mean, now with everything that is, as we talk now here in 2024, with everything that's come up with, video review, this and that, it's, I know we could sit another hour to talk about that, but I love what you just said because you're owning up to, hey, it happened. We're human. Let's move on.
We would tell players that during the game too. Hey, when I caught you for that hooking over there. I didn't know that he was holding your stick. I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. We talked to the players. There was a lot of communication on the ice. I don't, from my vantage point, from what I'm doing now with the AHL, being in the penalty box, there's some banter that goes on between officials and players, but the game, number one, the game is so different now.
Yeah.
So I've had officials during TV timeouts ask me questions, and I go, you know what? I'm not going to do you the disservice of trying to impart what I think you should have done or could have done, because the game is so different, and I don't know how they want you to work the game. Back when I was working, the key phrase was game management.
Game management.
You managed the game. And right now they seemingly want the officials to just call everything by the book, forget game management, forget the flow of the game. If it's a hard-hitting game and both teams are giving it back and forth, that was the excitement. The fans loved that. But I don't know that the higher-ups want that type of game called anymore.
Just basically by the book, you're saying.
By the book, yeah. And tragically, the book has gotten so thick, and the rules are so misunderstood, because they keep trying to. You have a face-off, let's say.
Yes.
Back in the day, the guy jumped in, you kick the guy out, you're done. Now they probably got 3 pages devoted on how to conduct a face-off. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Totally unnecessary. Enforce the rules that are there.
Right. You were able, as the linesman, if you didn't like what you saw, out you go, correct?
You're done.
Yeah. Yeah. It was your judgment. Right.
And that's what they don't want.
I see. Yeah.
They don't want judgment. They want black and white, what's in the book.
I want to go back to your WHA days, because I thought that was just fantastic, even before this week or a year ago. And I said, my God, Gary was doing, being a linesman in the WHA. I mean, a professional league. I know, even the AHL, a professional league, and the IHL. But how was it to do those games at the incept of, that started in 1972-73 to WHA. Were you a part of it right from the beginning of that?
Not the first year, the second year.
Second year, 73-74.
Yeah. In 72, I started doing like the Chicago Cardinals and the Chicago Warriors.
Yes.
And then in 73-74 was really my banner year, so to speak. I was still doing those, the Cardinals, the Warriors, the Chicago Nordiques in the Midwest Junior Hockey League. It was a junior team. A new league had formed, and it was supposed to be kind of they tried to emulate what goes on up in Canada with the junior leagues. They tried to emulate that here.
Gary, was Kenny Warham the coach back then?
Yes.
I remember that.
Their only year in existence.
Right. And Warham.
I lined in that league and worked with Kerry Frazier.
Oh, yes. Who became the NHL referee, right?
Yep. He was in that league. He was a referee and became friendly with Kerry. And I was doing so many different leagues. I mean, you were kind of an independent agent back then. It wasn't like, I work this league exclusively like a lot of the guys pretty much do now.
Right.
But again, hockey has blossomed so much in 50 years, we're talking 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I know it seems like yesterday when we're bringing up these names, but yeah, 50 years ago it's amazing. It's just amazing.
It blows my mind. I can't. Really,
where did it go? Like, my wife was telling me tonight, hey, it's September 5th. Don't forget, on December 30th of this year, we got this thing planned. I go, well, God, December's a long way off. Well, before you know it, it's going to be 2025 and we move on to another thing. But to go back, did the WHA and like an IHL, do they come calling on a Gary Como because they saw, hey, this is a gentleman that has a great experience and talent to what he does.
No, you had to promote yourself.
You did.
Yes.
And in what way, Gary?
Just, try to get with the powers that be, the people that are making the assignments, and promote yourself, and hopefully get somebody put a word in that, this guy can handle it, this, that, and the other. Chet Stewart, actually, one night we were out, this was before I did the IHL, and Bill Began was the commissioner of the IHL back then. And Chet was kind of bemoaning the fact that Bill was bugging him to do IHL games, and he didn't want to do them. And I said, well, I'll do them, And, so it was a phone call from Chet to Bill, and, I got some IHL games out of the deal. But no, basically you had to promote yourself. I remember with the Chicago Nordiques in the Midwest Junior Hockey League, we had a tryout. Hal Trumbull came in from USA Hockey. It was A-House back then, before USA Hockey, and he was the director of A-House. He came in for the tryouts, and we were selected to work in the league. So and they always told you, work as much as you can, and back then that was all I was doing. I was refereeing hockey.
And Gary, you had to go to different cities, correct? I mean, or were you just, it's not like you were doing, let's say, if we're talking to WHA, you're not doing every Cougar game at the amphitheater.
No, I went to Cincinnati a couple of times. I went to Indianapolis and Chicago. And, same with the IHL, the old IHL. Would go to Muskegon, Toledo, Flint.
Right.
Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne was in the IHL. They were a mainstay in the IHL for many, many, many years.
I'm going to use a word here tonight and tell me, when you say you had to promote yourself, which this is a fantastic thing that I appreciate you bringing this all up, because back then, for me, how I look at it now, maybe I just feel things are a little bit softer now. I don't even know how to describe what I just said, but back then, you had to have the stomach and the demeanor. They had to see that about you. Hey, this Como guy's not going to be pushed around, correct?
Well, I don't know. Nobody was going to push me around. I'm Sicilian,
Yeah, I did. That's for sure. Then this conversation is over.
So need I say more?
Yeah, right.
But again, Chet Stewart, who at the time was he was district registrar when IHOA started, and then became referee in chief of A-House for referees for the whole country.
Sure.
And I was fortunate to be and a close friend of his. He and Bob Lilla were both close friends, and they were always in my corner and always trying to help out. So when what you're trying to describe is the difference between how you made it back then versus now.
Yes.
And once USA Hockey started, like the sports festivals, and you went to the National Sports Festival as an official,
right? Then
you got exposure all over the country.
Okay.
In fact, a famous story, I believe it was the early 80s, and John McCauley from the NHL, he suffered an injury where he lost vision in one of his eyes, and became the director of officiating for the NHL.
Okay.
And he went to the sports festival in Colorado Springs to meet with Hal Trumbull and have Hal sign papers for the officials to travel between Canada and the United States. I guess they were visas or whatever. And Trumbull said, "No, I'm not going to sign them." And John said, "Why?" He says, "Well, you don't hire enough American guys," meaning the NHL.
Right. And
they went out to the rink, and McCauley pointed at a guy and said, "Who's that out there?" And it was Dan Shakty. and he hired Dan Shackey on the spot.
Wow.
So that's you know, and don't take anything away from Dan Shackey. Dan Shackey had a 20-year career in the NHL, and he was a great linesman. And but when they started the sports festivals and things of that nature, it is easier now. But they're also going in a path that makes me wonder what their thinking is. They're trying to get players to convert from playing to officiating.
Right.
But they're fast tracking them. They're playing this year, or they played last year. They approach this guy, or this guy shows interest, or lady.
Sure.
There's women officials too. I don't mean to exclude them. And within a year, they're working in the AHL. Well, that's not enough experience.
Exactly.
You gotta get your hands dirty and work all of those not garbage games, but those rough games, and experience things.
You gotta have the experience, right?
So they're fast tracking guys, and incredibly, I know of two instances that officials in the American League were playing 2 years ago, and they're working games in the NHL now within 2 years.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You've answered my question that I went in a roundabout way perfectly, because you just see things now that are different from the era that you came in. I have to tell you, and I just want to stop for just when we're visiting with Gary Como, former linesman in the IHL, the WHA, a prominent board member of IHOA. I got to tell you, you're on with the board of directors there. In 1991, kind of a dream comes true for you, right? With that NHL thing, with the video replay.
Yes.
That was something. You want to elaborate a little bit on that one?
Yes. Talk about a dream come true. I went to an exhibition game, and John Trapina was the off-ice official that worked the Chicago Blackhawk home penalty box for many, many, many years.
Okay.
And spoke with him, and he says, "Hey, they're creating this video replay thing." Okay, sounds cool. I knew Brian Lewis was the director of officiating for the NHL. I knew Brian. Called him up. He sent me some application. I filled them out, sent them back, and I was hired. And back then, actually, that was part of the officiating staff of the NHL. Right now, that position is part of the off-ice officials crew.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired two people from each city, and we would work our own schedule. And it was kind of crude in the beginning, obviously. They had to feel their way through. And now they have the war room in Toronto where all the reviews go to. Right. But back then, the video goal judge or video replay official was the guy that made decisions regarding goals. And I made one night. I awarded a goal to Mark Messier.
In the stadium?
Yes. And Bob Pulford was the general manager for the Blackhawks, and he went absolutely nuts.
At the time or after?
Oh, well, both.
Yeah, right.
He wanted to talk it out after the game, but Dave Newell, a longtime NHL referee, was supervising that night. I saw the play, and we had a technician running the video equipment. I saw the play, and the first thing you do is you mark the time. And as the play is going on, I'm telling the technician what I'm looking for. And I called down to the penalty box, said, next whistle, Rob Schick was refereeing.
Okay.
It gets Schicker over, and I need to talk to him on the phone. Talk to him. I says, I'm looking at the play that Messier had a breakaway on. And I looked at it and I said, roll it back. Looked at it again. I said, oh, that was a goal. And Dave Newell was in back of me looking at it. And he says, do what you got to do. And so we awarded him a goal. And I think that put the Rangers up 3-0 in that game. But then the Blackhawks came back, and ultimately the Blackhawks lost that game 4-3. So
was stuff, I'm trying to remember that era of that game. This was stuff cascading down in the old stadium on you?
No, but I was on camera a lot. I had friends in New York who were watching the New York feed, and they were calling me, and Pat Foley and Dale Talon were doing the radio. And I got home that night, and my wife said, boy, if they mentioned your name once, they mentioned it 50 times. So, but it was a goal.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. And of course, you were not intimidated. The word I want to use, you weren't intimidated by the home crowd or the home team. This was a legit goal, and you had to call it that way. Wow. Again, another great story, great event, and everything else. I got to tell you, we're going to move on a little bit, but that is just something. Here I'm looking at this, the resume. You've always been in this kind of, am I right to say, Gary, in that supervisor's role, kind of the guy they've looked up to, from the Iowa, the IHL with the Wolves, and of course, this thing with the video replay and everything else, and still being involved with the AHL as the off-ice official. It's got to make you feel unbelievable.
Yeah, again, in my induction speech to the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame, I guess the theme was all the things that have happened in my life that I can't believe happened.
Sure.
And I have to admit, a lot of it, I wasn't always outgoing and, take charge type guy until I went to the Marines.
Okay.
And
yeah, you're a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Yeah.
Yes. And you get to watch that fine line. You can't think you're always, you don't come home and go, I'm the baddest guy on the block, because there's other guys that are bigger and badder. But it instilled that confidence, the confidence of knowing how to approach things, problem solving, just going about things in a different way. Before that, I kind of sat back and listened a lot, and wasn't always ready to jump in the fray, so to speak.
Sure.
But once I experienced being in the service, and specifically the Marine Corps, it really changed my mind about, maybe I can make something of myself.
And you know what? I thank you again, because it's that pilot that probably got lit in the Gary Como that Gary Como never had, but that was another motivating factor when you speak about the Marine Corps.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something.
I never, we would do amphibious landings. I've rappelled out of helicopters.
Sure.
Things a Chicago Avenue kid would never think of doing.
Exactly. Coming from that neighborhood, you would have thought, just going down the resume. Well, listen, I know we're going to definitely have to do a part 2, but I have this thing at the end where I do these 5 questions, and then I have something to say about you at the end that I think you're really going to like. But I want to get into asking you about 5 questions. You can answer me with 1-word answers, a sentence, however you want. But I'm going to start this out with the first question. Who's that early mentor? If it's from those beginning days or parents.
My dad.
Your dad?
My dad. I didn't always show it, but later on in life, I realized it. I realized his work ethic. You know, I never saw him until later in life. He survived till he was 93.
Wow.
Passed away in 2018. But early on, as a child, I never saw him sick, and if he was, he hit it well.
You're right.
Always got up, went to work. You know, and my mom too, in a way, she used to say, you know, you work, you want something, work for it. Nobody can ever take it away from you. So, you know, it was the parents.
Yeah. And then I'm sure that great Italian upbringing, that's beautiful what you said about both of them, because it's a very familiar thing in my mind too with mine. All right, we'll go on a little bit of a lighter side. What's that favorite Gary Como movie that he could watch 200 times, not get bored? What's maybe one or two movies that you love to this day where you're going to get off the camera with me and I'm going to go put on this movie, I got nothing to do?
My cousin Vinny.
Okay. Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci. Fred Gwynn as the judge.
Oh, God.
Absolutely hysterical.
The Utes. The Utes.
Yes. Yes. The two what? You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely my cousin Vinny. And Slapshot.
Oh, yeah.
Got to go with that.
And you were a part of that era.
Yeah, and I worked when I was lining in the USHL. Back then it was a senior league. Now it's a junior league. Or even if the Carlsons were playing for the Marquette Iron Mountain Rangers.
Wow.
And I kind of struck up a friendship with Steve, the youngest of the Hansons or Carlsons. They're real. Actually, he asked if I was interested in being in Slapshot 2.
Oh, wow.
And he was doing color commentary for the Milwaukee Admirals. And I was supervising in the IHL, and he asked me if I would be interested in doing it. I said, hey, absolutely. But they were doing it, they were going to film it in Vancouver, I believe, and it was going to go right to DVD.
Oh, wow.
And they, as with a lot of filming that goes on in cities, you have to employ so many local people, so that
Got it.
It didn't happen. They couldn't swing it, but he asked me if I would like to do it.
Oh, that would have been, I mean, what a thing coming from them. They, again, you know, the respect factor for you. I mean, that's tremendous. All right. I've never met Janine, which is your lovely wife. And of
Yes.
course, you have the two children, Angela and Peter. But I got to ask you, what's the go-to meal or the go-to restaurant or something that Janine makes that you say, man, that's the best thing, and you could eat it all the time? Or the go-to restaurant where you want to take Janine? What's your favorite?
We go. I would say if we go somewhere, I'll let her pick. And one of her favorites is a place called Johnny's Kitchen and Tap in Glenview. It's on Milwaukee Lake.
Yes, very good place.
We know the owner, Mary, very well, and Janine loves it there. Unfortunately, we don't do dinner with the kids too much. They're off doing their own thing. We're empty nesters, you know. And as far as the meal, when Janine makes something, fettuccine Alfredo.
Okay. I think she's going to like that when she watches this, when it comes out here in a couple of days. Okay.
Yeah.
When she makes it, maybe I'm going to have to stop by. We'll do the part 2 in person. Yeah. All right. I got to ask you something. You've been around this forever and a day with being a linesman, being an official, being a supervisor. You brought up Bob Pulford, of course, in that goal that Messier, that you had to turn over that goal. Can you name your 5 top coaches from the old era to now? Who are your top 5 coaches that you dealt with, or that you thought you had a respect for? They could be amateur coaches in Illinois, or they could be professional coaches all over the world. You got 5.
Wow. You know, I'm just such a stickler for the old days.
Me too.
I, um, I have discussions with people about, you know, the game now in regards to, and not only hockey, but I have a hard time accepting baseball with putting a runner on second base in the extra innings.
I thought that was just during COVID they kept it going.
You know, that just
Craziness.
and with that, you know, in particular, speaking about hockey and the things that the shootout, not a big fan anymore. It was great when we did it in the IHL. Fans got excited. It was a minor league, but
Sure.
now you're talking in the National Hockey League. Do you really want to decide whether a team makes the playoffs on a shootout?
A shootout.
You know, I just, so I'm a purist, so to speak, as far as the game that I grew up with. The same with, you know, the National Hockey League is the only sport in the world that awards a point if you lose.
Right.
And I can't.
That one I don't buy either. Exactly.
Can't wrap my head around that.
Exactly.
So, you know, to answer your question, I was pretty friendly with Billy Ray.
Okay.
Billy Ray, you know, he should have won a couple of cups here.
Oh, for sure. 65 and 71, he should have won.
Yeah. Sid Abel.
Oh, wow. The Detroit coach.
Yeah. And Toe Blake.
Oh,
people like that, you know, from that era. Not, you know, again, not taking anything away from today's coaches or today's game, but these guys, they were the only ones behind the bench back then. Now you've got a coach.
Now you got
two assistant coaches. You got one guy that handles offense, one guy handles defense. What is the head coach doing?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but you basically have the Como and Conenna family behind the bench. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so again, not to take it, that's the way the game has evolved, and that's fine.
Sure.
You know, in the AHL, you see things in the AHL that you're not going to see in the NHL.
Sure.
They're still coaching people back, you know, in the AHL, and they coach people in the NHL too. But you know, you've got to be game ready to make the NHL.
Without a doubt.
There's no room for sissies up there.
No, not without a doubt.
And that was, you know, I saw that as I was working my way up through various leagues, you know, doing the Cardinals games and the Warrior games, and then you go and you do a WHA game and you go, wow, this is faster.
Sure.
And then I did the Blackhawk training camp for many years, and I saw the NHL and I go, wow, this is even faster.
Faster.
Better. It's just amazing. I think the hockey player, whether it's a woman or a man, are the best athletes of the four sports.
Oh, without it. I agree too, because there's so much that goes into this game.
You talk to the passive fan, and you know, or somebody who's seen hockey live for the first time.
Sure.
And I always like to try to sell the game. You know, I love talk to people about the game, especially knowing if it's their first time seeing it in person. And I go, what do you think? And you know, they're kind of come see, come saw about it. And I go, remember, they're not running on a field. They're skating while they're doing those things with the puck and this, that, and the other. So it's just it's not just one skill set.
No. Yeah. You have so many things involved. Last question before I let you go. What did it mean to you be inducted into the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame?
If my head could have exploded when I found out, it would have. I was totally surprised, shocked, pleasantly surprised.
Sure.
And honored and humbled.
Yeah. That was something that I can imagine.
Regardless, you know, as I said that night, you know, when IHOA was founded at the Elmhurst Y, and to think back to that night and nobody could have imagined that night what hockey would be 50 years later, and all the dedication from people
Sure.
that have brought it to the point that it's at now and will continue in the future. It's a far different ball game than when we started, when, you know, the night that IHOA was founded.
Yeah. What an honor for you. Well, listen, I'm going to leave you with this because it's something you said in your speech. And I got to bring it up one more time. And I was hoping you were going to bring it up, so I beat you to it. Gary Como, I got to tell you this, for the guy who came up from that Humboldt neighborhood, I'm going to say something about some ladies. Those nuns were wrong about you. You amounted to something. And this was a pleasure to have you on. This was great. Wanted to interview you for a while. And again, congratulations on being inducted in that Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame. I knew how it was for me. And this was a tremendous honor tonight. And I thank you for coming on a conversation with John Conenna.
Well, I can't thank you enough for the invite. And yeah, those were rough days back then in school. For some reason, after the fire, I wasn't a very good student all the time. But yeah, between
you said it right, Gear. We all grew up that whoever was there grew up that day.
Yeah, we grew up fast, but yeah, no, I kind of threw that in because the nuns actually.
I love that part of your speech. It was fantastic.
The nuns actually did tell my parents that I wasn't going to amount to.
And look what's happened here.
Yeah.
This will go out on YouTube. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Correct. A good perseverance. This will go out on YouTube and Spotify in the coming days. We visited with Gary Como, Illinois inductee for the Hall of Fame here in 2023. And I hope somewhere down the road we can do another one, Gary, because I could talk to you all night about this stuff.
Yep, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Again, thank you for the invite, and
you got it.
Hope to see you in person soon.
For sure. All right, Gary. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
On sale now at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble stores. The Twins, A Journey of a Lifetime. The brothers and authors Tony and Carl Ruzicka take us through a journey of Chicago sports history and their memories of a bygone era. Purchase your copy today.